Hello, class. This is Mr. Weckesser, and I am going to show you how to do 3-5 homework. I just did this once, and I'll tell you what, I made a mistake, and it wasn't fun. And you can see my questions down here. I made a mistake right here, and I'm not going to save this because I made a mistake, and it happens. Everyone makes mistakes, and it happens. And I was trying to do a fancy way, and I feel like I can't do the fancy way. I'm going to show you how to do it, how I like to do it myself. So 3-5 is elimination of method we're going to use. That's all. We're going to do two problems. We're going to do number one together, and you write all the work down, and you receive credit for that. That's 50% of your homework. So you get 50% for number one. Here's 50%. And you get another 50% over here if you do number two on your own. And I want you to just show work and you receive credits. If you notice, I gave you all the answers. Here's X, Y, and Z. That's going to be a quiz question today. What variables do you need to have? The quiz is going to be very easy today. If you do the quiz, it'll be very, very simple. If you show what you learned in the homework, I'm not going to ask you to do any math. I'm going to ask you just what you learned, and you need to answer what you learned. And X, Y, Z is something you learned. Another thing you learned is you can use substitution or elimination method to do these problems. That's also in the quiz. The third question in the quiz is 3 variables is what you're going to start with for every single time with 3 equations. And then you'll go from there to 2 variables once you eliminate one with 2 equations. And then you'll eliminate another variable, and you'll have 1 variable left in 1 equation, and that's the ultimate goal because you know how to solve that and find the answer for that. And you'll take that variable and plug it into one of your 2 variables with 2 equations and solve for that one. And you'll take the 2 variables you have the answers for and plug it into the 3 variable with 3 equations, and you'll get the last variable's answer. That's how we do it. So that'll be your third question on the quiz. So you have the first question right here in your quiz. Your second question, like I said before, will be how to set this up. And the elimination and substitution method is the third question. So there we go. Let me try to do this work again and not make any mistakes. Okay? And I kind of showed you how to do number 2 a little bit right here. You're going to take these variables and you're going to subtract them in order, or add them in order to solve them. I prefer to add because I make less mistakes. And I'm going to teach you how to add. So let's go to, here we go, a clean piece of paper. So first thing I am going to do as a mathematician is rewrite all of the problems on top of my page. I know this is a lot of work, but you need to do this in order to solve and show your work. And typically, like I said yesterday, these problems last about a full page of work. And that's what it's going to look like. That's only going to have you do one problem on your own. It's a full page of work. That's a lot of work. So just one page of work. Right? So the first step here, what you want to do is you want to look at, here, I'm going to write the steps over here for you. Steps. Find a variable you want to eliminate. For this first one here, you look at the easiest equation, right? And the easiest equation we're going to say is going to be this one because this has 2 variables with no numbers. X has no number and Z has no number. Then you're going to look at, okay, so X is probably the easiest because Z on this one has 3, Z on this one has 5. X has 2 here and 2 here and nothing here. Y does have a 2 here, nothing here, and a 3 here. But X, if you want to get rid of the x's when you already have two numbers that are exactly the same in two different equations. That's the easiest one to choose. So you're going to variable to eliminate, and then you're going to choose two equations to first add or subtract, and then two different equations to add or subtract. And that's when you get down to two equations with two variables. So you remember, the goal is to go from this 3 to 2 equations with two variables to one equation with one variable. So I'm going to choose first, and this is how I like to do it. I like to do this little arrow method right here. And then I'm going to like this other arrow method here. I'm going to choose the first two and then the next two. I'm going to hide this little guy here. And I'm going to show you my first set of work. Let's go in the wrong direction there. So my first set of work, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to rewrite the first equation. My first equation is going to be, I'm going to do a little squiggly line here, will be x plus 2y plus z equals 10. And my second equation, which I'm also going to use, is 2x minus y plus 3z equals -5. So I want to add all of these. So when I add all these, you're going to have to multiply 1 by a negative number. And so because I'm going to multiply this by 2 right here already to get these x's to multiply out, I want to multiply the whole thing by a -2. And that'll help me get that negative so I can add them and it'll just eliminate those. So what I'm going to do now is draw another squiggly line here. And I'm going to multiply this top one by -2 and plug it in right below it so I can then set it up like I want it. So -2 times x is a -2x. -2 times 2y is a -4y. -2 times z is a -2z. And -2 times 10 is a -20. Now I can take these, and I like to add always because I don't make mistakes when I add, as many as I do when I subtract. So 2x plus a -2x, you have 0 x's. -y plus a -4y is a -5y. Then you have 3z plus a -2z. That means you have just one z, right? It's like 3 minus 2 there. Then you have -5 plus a -20 is -25. So now we have our first two variable with two equations. So that's our first step. Second step is eliminate another, go back to the top here, and take the top two, take this next two here, these are next two here, and eliminate x there. So let me scroll down a little bit, expand a little bit more. And we're going to take the next two equations and we're going to eliminate another variable. The next two equations are, and this I'm going to show you slowly how to do this again. You have 2x minus y plus 3z equals -5. And you have 2x minus 3y minus 5z equals 27. Okay? In order to add these, I'm going to have to make one of these multiply by a -1. Because if I subtract them, I can eliminate the x, but I hate subtracting. So I'm going to multiply this top one or the bottom one by a negative in order to subtract them. Let's choose the top one so I can put it right below it and just save some work and not rewrite it. So I'm going to top one by -1. -1 times 2x is a -2x. -1 times -y is a +y. Remember, everything's just going to change the sign. So -1 times plus 3z is -3z. And -1 times -5 equals +5. And now it's easier for me to add these two. And I get this 2x plus a -2x is no x's. -3y plus a y is a -2y. And then -5 plus a -3z is a negative 8z, and then 27 plus 5 is 32. And now I have my first step kind of done. I have this equation with two variables and this equation with two variables. Now I'm going to combine those two to eliminate another thing. So this is where we have a lot more work coming, so don't get frustrated. I'll write these down on top of each other so I can see them better. 5y plus z equals negative 25. And I also have negative 2y minus 8z equals 32. And this is why I need to look at the two variables and see, oh, which ones line up? None of them line up, so I can subtract them, or add them. So I'm really upset about that. But now I can say, okay, which one's easier to multiply? And I'm going to say this one because this is z by itself. If I did these two right here, the y's, I'd have to multiply each by the opposite. So I have to multiply the top one by 2 and the bottom equation by 5. Instead, I'm going to multiply the entire top equation by 8 in order to get the z's to eliminate. So, and I'm going to draw a little line here, my squiggly line. 8 times 5 is negative 40y. 8 times positive z is a positive 8z. And this is my goal here, to eliminate those 8s. And then I have 8 times 25 is a negative, or negative 25 is negative 200. So now we're going to add, I get negative 42y, the z's are gone, and I get negative 168. And this is where I'm going to divide 168 divided by 42, and I get 4. So negative 42 on each side. I had to use my calculator there. So y equals 4. And that, we know by looking at the homework, is correct. I'm going to expand my page. Okay, so we got to take that 4. Oops. And we're going to go up and see where I can put that 4 at to solve. What's the easiest equation with a y in that I can solve for another variable that has just two equations? So I'm going to look at these, my work, real quick. I'm going to say, oh, I can solve right here for z if I use this equation right here to plug in the y. So I'm going to go down here, try to without, so I can see it still. There we go. I'm going to go down here and plug in this y for the negative 2y minus 8z equals 32. So this is when you have two equations, two variables, and you know what y is, so you can just plug in this y right down there. So negative 2 times 4 minus 8z equals 32. So negative 2 times 4 is negative 8 minus 8z equals 32. So we know those two. So now we need to solve for z. Add 8 to each side. Negative 8z equals 32 plus 8 is 40. Divide by negative 8. And now we have the answer to z. Beautiful. Now we have two answers, so we're going to plug it into the easiest equation in the entire problem. It was the first equation, and that is x plus 2y plus z equals 10. This is when it all comes together. It's very quick after this. So we know y is 4. We know z is negative 5. So we have x by himself. Y is 2 times 4. And we know z now is negative 5. And that all equals 10. So we can solve this and find out what x is now. So x is by himself. 2 times 4 is 8. Then we have plus a negative 5 equals 10. X, 8 minus 5 is 3. So x plus 3 equals 10. minus 3 on each side. X equals 10 minus 3 is 7. So let's rewrite everything in our X, Y, Z format. X is 7, Y we know is 4, and Z is -5. And that's how we do our answer. I know it's a lot of work, guys, but you need to try that for question 2. On your homework, plug it in, multiply, divide. I want to at least see you subtracting the equations or adding the equations to try to get the 2 equations. If you show that work, at least I'm gonna give you answers. But look at all the work we had here today. That's a lot of work. So let's go back before we finish and finish our steps. We went from a variable to eliminate 2 equations, 2 equations. There should be 2 variables with 2 equations. Then we have 3-2-1 method we talked about. And then we need to plug in the first one, plug in 1. And then number 5, you'd plug in 2. Oops, I can't even write today. Plug in 2 variables. And then you solve, and then finally you're going to write the X, Y, Z. Once you plug in the 2 variables to solve for the 3rd variable, you're going to get the X, Y, Z as your answer. These are the steps, and I'm sure if you Google this or looked at your homework that I gave you, there's also some steps that are nice you can copy there. That's it. Have a great day. Do your homework, do your quiz. The quiz is very simple. It's probably going to be these steps right here. So that'll be fun for you guys.